The battlefield stretched across the jagged valleys of Velira IX like a canvas of destruction. Smoke spiraled into the crimson sky, mixing with streaks of fire that leapt from cratered ground. The alien invaders, known as the Zevrak, had struck with precision, their sleek forms moving like shadows, leaving humans struggling to catch their breath. Amid the ruins of shattered vehicles and broken communication arrays, Lieutenant Cale Draven ran with a purpose that defied exhaustion. His armor was scorched in places, and small sparks clung to the edges where energy blasts had grazed him. His lungs burned, each breath tasting of ash and metal, but he ignored it. There was only one thing that mattered. Commander Lyra Kess lay on the jagged rocks ahead, her uniform torn, her face pale under the blood and grime, and a spear embedded deep in her chest. The weapon was unlike anything Cale had ever seen, long, sleek, and etched with strange, glowing runes that pulsed faintly. It radiated an energy that seemed almost alive, and Cale could feel its heat even from a distance. He knew the Zevrak had a cruel habit of using their weapons to manipulate life itself. That spear wasn't just a tool of death, it was a curse, feeding on its victim's energy. Cale skidded to a halt beside her, ignoring the pain in his legs and the ringing in his ears from the distant explosions. "Lyra," he said, voice shaking. "Stay with me, please." Lyra's eyelids fluttered, and she tried to reach out for him, but her hand fell limply onto the bloodied ground. "Cale, she gasped, her voice barely audible. The spear seemed to pulse in response to her heartbeat, glowing brighter with each weak thump. It was alive, and it had chosen her as its host. Cale's mind raced. The Zevrak had engineered these weapons to be more than mere tools of war. They could sense strength, survival instinct, even emotion. He could feel the spear reacting to Lyra's life, draining her slowly. Hesitation would kill her. He swallowed hard, fighting down the fear gnawing at his chest. There was only one way to save her, and it would cost him everything. With a deep breath, Cale dropped to his knees. His hands shook as he gripped the spear's shaft. The runes burned against his palms, and he could feel the energy trying to resist him, trying to latch onto him as it had Lyra. "I've got you," he whispered, more to steady himself than for her benefit. With a grunt, he yanked. Pain exploded through his body, unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't just physical, it was in his very bones, his blood, his mind. Energy surged through him, alien and wild, leaving him gasping. Lyra's eyes widened, her pain suddenly easing. The wound in her chest seemed to close, as if it had never existed. Her breathing became steadier, though she still trembled with shock. "Cale, what?" she croaked. "I saved you," he managed, voice ragged. But as the words left his mouth, he felt it. The spear had transferred its curse into him. The energy burned in his veins, a living thing that was slowly consuming him. He fell to the ground beside her, clutching his chest, as nausea and dizziness threatened to overwhelm him. The battlefield was no longer just a backdrop. It was a living, breathing enemy. The Zevrak scouts were returning, their iridescent eyes glinting in the smoke. They moved in silent formation, observing the human survivors. Cale could feel the spear reacting to their presence like a predator alerting its host to danger. He knew he had seconds to act. "Cale," Lyra reached for him, her hand trembling. "You're burning up. What's happening?" It's the spear. It's alive." "It wants me." Cale's voice was barely more than a whisper, but he forced himself upright, shielding her with his body. His vision blurred and sweat poured down his face. He felt the alien energy probing his mind, testing his will, and he gritted his teeth against the pain. Humans were supposed to be fragile, weak. But in that moment, he realized that fragility was only what others assumed. Humanity had a stubbornness that no weapon, alien or otherwise, could extinguish easily. Lyra's eyes filled with both fear and awe. She had seen humanity survive impossible odds before, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. "Cale, you don't have to." "I do," he interrupted, voice firm despite the agony. "I can't let them take you, not like this, not ever." Around them, the Zevrak scouts began to descend from the rocks, their movements fluid, almost predatory. Cale forced himself to his feet, placing Lyra behind him. Each step was agony, the alien energy pulsing in him burned with every heartbeat, yet he refused to fall. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back in ways the galaxy had never seen. The first scout lunged, its limbs elongating in a way that defied human anatomy. Cale met it with a surge of raw energy from the spear. The alien screamed, a high-pitched shriek that rattled the rocks and staggered back. The energy wasn't just destructive, it was transformative. Kale could feel it amplifying his reflexes, his strength, his endurance, but the cost was mounting. Every second he used it, he felt himself slipping closer to death. Lyra scrambled behind him, her own training kicking in. She grabbed a fallen plasma rifle, firing at the remaining scouts with precision born of desperation. The combination of human skill and the alien energy in Kale created a strange, unpredictable defense. They fought back to back, the impossible odds forcing them into perfect synchronization. Even as they battled, Kale felt the weight of the spear's curse. His vision wavered, colors bleeding into each other. He could feel his heartbeat slowing, his strength ebbing away. Yet he refused to let it touch Lyra. He thought of the fleet, of the billions depending on human courage, of the stubborn spark that had always set humanity apart. He would endure, he had to. The ground shook beneath them as one of the larger Zevrak war beasts approached. It towered above them, its carapace glinting with metallic hues, eyes fixed on Kale with uncanny intelligence. It roared, a sound that made the rocks tremble and charged. Kale braced himself, drawing on every ounce of willpower and the alien energy coursing through him. The collision was explosive. Kale met the beast head-on, energy surging outward in a blinding flash. The force threw both him and the creature back, scraping his armor against jagged stones. Lyra dove to shield him, firing at the beast's exposed limbs. The alien screeched in pain and retreat, momentarily disoriented. Kale coughed, tasting blood, but he rose again. He could feel the spear pulsing, almost like it approved of his resolve. For a brief moment, everything was silent again. The horizon burned, the Zevrak were regrouping, but Lyra's chest rose and fell evenly. Kale felt a pang of relief, fleeting but potent. Humanity had survived yet another impossible moment, but the spear reminded him that survival came with sacrifice. Kale sank to one knee, sweat and blood mixing on his face. His vision swirled with colors and pain, the alien energy writhing inside him like a living storm. He could feel his body weakening, each heartbeat a battle, yet he held on, every fiber of his being screaming against surrender. Humans were not meant to bow so easily. Lyra knelt beside him, placing her hand over his. "Kale, you saved me." "You're incredible." Her voice trembled, but her eyes shone with determination and pride. She had seen the depths of human courage before, but this was personal, raw, and unforgettable. Kale managed a weak smile, his fingers tightening around hers. We survived together," he whispered. "That's what it means to be human." The sky above roared with distant battles, but in that moment, amidst the smoke and fire and alien terror, there was a brief, shining spark. Humanity had endured. And though Kale's body burned with alien energy, his spirit remained unbroken. The spear pulsed again, a living heartbeat inside him, and Kale knew this was only the beginning. Whatever the Zevrak had planned, whatever the galaxy had yet to unleash, humanity had a defender now who would not yield. Kale Draven had taken her pain, taken her wound, and in doing so had shown that even in the darkest reaches of space, human courage could shine brighter than any star. He leaned back, trying to draw breath, the fire of the alien energy coursing through him. Lyra held him, whispering words of encouragement, her presence steadying him even as his own strength faltered. The battlefield might be lost to others, but in their corner, a small but blazing testament to human will remain. Kale's vision blurred, the spear's energy now a constant, pulsing torment, but he refused to surrender. He had made a choice, a human choice, and in that choice he had defined what humanity truly was, not fragile, not weak, but relentless, defiant, and willing to endure unimaginable pain to protect one another. Even as the Zevrak regrouped, Kale felt a strange clarity. This was not the end, it was a new beginning. And though the cost would be high, and though his body bore the weight of alien fury, his spirit burned with a light that no darkness could extinguish. Kale's body burned with the alien energy coursing through him, a living fire that refused to die. Every breath was a struggle, every heartbeat a reminder that he had taken Lyra's wound into his own body. The battlefield stretched endlessly before them, a jagged wasteland of rock and smoke, littered with the broken shells of human and Zevrak machinery alike. Even with the immediate danger momentarily held at bay, the threat had not passed. The Zevrak were regrouping, and Kale could feel the spear reacting to their movements, pulsating with a dark hunger that mirrored his own fatigue. Lyra crouched beside him, her hands still gripping his arm as if anchoring him to life. She had never seen him like this. Usually so unshakable, so fierce, Kale now seemed fragile, a human tethered to a weapon designed to consume him. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus. Survival required action, not panic. "Kale, listen," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "We can't stay here. They'll come back, and when they do, it won't be just scouts." Her eyes darted toward the distant shadows where the Zevrak regrouped, their alien forms flickering against the haze of fire and smoke. "We need to move, now." Kale nodded weakly, though the motion nearly made him collapse. I don't know how much longer I can hold this," he admitted, voice raspy, raw from the alien energy writhing in his chest. The spear was no longer just a weapon. It was a living parasite feeding off his strength, reshaping his very being. It's changing me." Lyra's hands tightened on his arm. "You're still human," she insisted. "Whatever it does, you're still you. That's why it's reacting to you. It's strong because of you." She paused, taking in the burning horizon. "We survive together, Kale. That's what we do." He wanted to believe her, but the truth was undeniable. His limbs felt heavier with every step, his mind clouded with a haze of heat and pain. Yet despite the agony, a spark of determination flared inside him. Humanity had survived worse than this. Humanity had endured plagues, wars, and the cold vacuum of space. And now, facing an alien force that had underestimated them at every turn, Kale refused to falter. Slowly, painfully, he rose to his feet, using Lyra's support to steady himself. The spear hummed in response, a low, resonant vibration that filled his mind with whispers of alien thought. It was alive, it was aware, and it had chosen him as its host. Kale gritted his teeth against the searing energy, refusing to let it dominate him. Not now, not ever. The Zevrak scouts reappeared over the ridges, moving with predatory precision. Their eyes glowed like molten silver, scanning the terrain for signs of life. Kale felt the energy in him pulse violently, almost like a warning. "They know we're here," he muttered. "They can sense it," Lyra nodded. "Then we use it against them." She reached for one of the abandoned plasma rifles lying in the rubble. "Cover me, I'll draw their fire." Her determination was a beacon, a reminder of why they were still alive. Kale positioned himself ahead of her, the spear's energy now humming through his muscles, enhancing his reflexes and strength even as it drained his vitality. The first Zevrak scout emerged, a lithe creature with elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws. It lunged at Lyra, but Kale's hand shot out, and a wave of alien energy erupted from him. The scout screamed, staggering backward, disoriented. The energy wasn't entirely under his control yet. It surged unpredictably, but every blast kept them alive. Lyra fired carefully, hitting another scout in the chest. "Kale, over here!" she shouted. They moved together, a seamless partnership of human skill and alien power. The battlefield became a deadly dance, each step a matter of life and death. The Zevrak adapted quickly, but Kale's resilience kept them at bay, his determination amplifying the alien energy in ways the weapon could not anticipate. Hours seemed to pass in a blur of motion, pain, and survival instinct. Kale's body screamed for rest, but he ignored it. Every heartbeat, every pulse of the alien energy reminded him of what was at stake. Lyra's life, the survival of humanity, the stubborn spark of defiance that refused to bow to the Zevrak. Each time he raised his arm to strike, each surge of energy, he felt closer to exhaustion, yet he could not stop. Humans were not built to give up, even when the odds were insurmountable. By late afternoon, the pair had reached a small ravine, its jagged rocks providing some cover from the Zevrak's scouting parties. Kale collapsed against the cold stone, gasping for air. Lyra knelt beside him, pressing a hand against his forehead. "You're burning out," she said softly. "We need a plan. We can't fight like this forever." Kale shook his head, sweat dripping into his eyes. "No, I can't leave it. The spear, it's not just energy. It's aware of me. If I stop now, it might take someone else. Or worse, it might kill me slowly." He coughed, a mix of blood and smoke filling his lungs. "I can't let it hurt you or anyone else." Lyra's eyes softened, but the resolve in her voice was steel. "Then we survive together. We find a way to contain it. But first, we need to get to the communication outpost. They might have a way to analyze the spear to understand it. And if they can understand it, maybe we can control it or at least limit its damage." Kale nodded, gritting his teeth. He pushed himself to his feet, every muscle screaming in protest. The Zevrak would not give them a moment's peace. Yet in that unbearable weight of exhaustion and pain, Kale felt a spark of hope. Humanity had always thrived in the darkest moments, and he would not allow the spear to define him, or them. They moved slowly, carefully, using the jagged terrain for cover. The Zevrak scouts continued to patrol, sometimes passing close enough that Kale had to call upon the alien energy to create sudden bursts of light and heat, scaring them away. Each time he did, the spear's influence grew stronger, spreading its alien tendrils through his veins. Pain shot through him, but the satisfaction of keeping Lyra alive outweighed it. Every second they survived was a victory, however small. At one point, they paused in a narrow canyon, forced to stop as a Zevrak patrol passed overhead. Lyra leaned against the rock, exhaustion evident in her movements. "Kale," she said quietly, "we need to talk. You've been carrying the spear's energy all this time. If it keeps transferring like this, it could kill you. We need to think strategically, not just survive." Kale clenched his fists, feeling the alien power surging violently. "I know," he admitted, "but I don't care. I'd rather die than let it take you or anyone else. That's humanity. We endure, we sacrifice, we fight even when there's no hope." "That's who we are?" His voice shook, but his eyes burned with unwavering determination. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of fear and awe. She had always believed in human resilience, but Kale's actions embodied it in a way words could never capture. The spear had chosen him, but Kale had chosen humanity over himself. He had taken her wound, her pain, and made it his own. And in doing so, he had reminded her of what made humans remarkable, their unyielding will to protect, to endure, and to survive against impossible odds. As night fell, the battlefield transformed. Shadows stretched long, and the smoke thickened, making visibility almost impossible. Yet Kale and Lyra pressed on, navigating through narrow canyons and over jagged rocks. The alien patrols were relentless, but Kale's control over the spear's energy improved slightly. He could sense the Zevrak before they appeared, anticipate their movements, and strike with precision. Each encounter left him weaker, yet more determined. Every victory was temporary, but each moment they survived strengthened the bond between them. Eventually, they reached a cliff overlooking the ruins of what appeared to be an old human outpost. Communication towers lay in twisted heaps, but Kale could sense faint energy readings, signals that suggested the outpost might still have operational systems. Lyra's eyes lit up. "If we can get to that outpost, even partially operational, we might be able to call for backup, or at least analyze the spear." Kale nodded, though his body protested. The alien energy surged violently, feeding on his determination, and he stumbled. Lyra caught him immediately. "Careful," she warned. "We're almost there." Together they descended toward the outpost, every step a test of endurance. The Zevrak would not stop, but neither would they. Humanity had always found a way, and Kale and Lyra were living proof. The spear pulsed ominously within him, a constant reminder of the cost of survival, but also of the power that could be wielded if humanity refused to yield. At the entrance of the outpost, they paused, taking a moment to catch their breath. The walls were scorched, the machinery damaged, but a faint glow emanated from the central console. Kale approached it slowly, the spear's energy flaring with anticipation, almost like it recognized the source of the signals. He reached out, pressing his hand against the console. Sparks flew and screens flickered to life. Lyra's eyes widened. "We might actually be able to understand it," she whispered. "Control it, maybe even use it to fight back." Kale exhaled sharply, pain racking his body, but hope glimmered. Humanity had survived countless odds, and tonight would be no different. The Zevrak would learn, as they always did, that humans were not just fragile beings to be toyed with. They were resilient, cunning, and fiercely unyielding. And as Kale and Lyra worked together, the alien spear pulsing violently within him, one truth became undeniable. Humanity would fight, endure, and survive, no matter the cost. Kale's body trembled with exhaustion, every muscle screaming in protest. The alien energy pulsing through him had become more than just a burden. It was a living storm, writhing within his veins, testing the limits of his will. Yet, even in the crushing weight of pain, he refused to surrender. Humanity had always endured the impossible, and he would not be the first to falter. Lyra knelt beside him at the outpost console, her hands flying across the damaged controls. Sparks hissed as systems flickered to life, faint lights illuminating the warped metal walls. The outpost was old, a relic from humanity's early colonization of Velira IX, but it still contained technology powerful enough to analyze alien energy signatures. Kale's body burned as he drew closer, feeling the spear pulse violently in response to the outpost's energy field. I think I can stabilize it, Lyra said, her voice tense but filled with determination. If we can contain the energy even partially, you might survive long enough to fight back. She glanced at him, fear and admiration warring in her expression. But it won't be easy, you're already at the edge. Kale managed a weak nod, though his vision blurred. I have to, we can't stop now. Not when the Zevrak are coming back, stronger than before. He could feel their presence already, alien scouts moving through the rocky terrain, their predatory senses scanning for him. Every heartbeat made the spear surge with energy, threatening to overwhelm him, yet he clenched his teeth and forced himself upright. Humans survived against odds far worse than this. That had always been their strength. The first wave of Zevrak arrived just as Lyra initiated a partial stabilization sequence on the console. The creatures moved with terrifying grace, their bodies sleek and elongated, limbs extending unnaturally as they scaled the rocky cliffs. Kale felt the spear react instantly, a violent surge that shot through his arms and legs, amplifying his strength but threatening to consume his consciousness. He roared in pain, yet refused to let it show weakness. Lyra fired at the first scout, her plasma rounds striking true, and Kale unleashed the energy within him in a controlled burst. The scout screamed, staggering backward, but there were more, always more. Kale realized then that the spear was testing him. It wanted to see if he could control it, if he could harness its power without being destroyed. And for the first time, he understood something profound. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a mirror. It reflected the strength of its host, and humanity had a kind of resilience the Zevrak had never anticipated. Lyra moved beside him, covering his blind spots. "Kale, you have to focus. We can't let them overrun the outpost," she shouted. Her hands trembled on the rifle, but every shot was precise, every decision calculated. Humans survived because they adapted, because they refused to give in, and Lyra embodied that spirit perfectly. Kale gritted his teeth and extended his hands, releasing another pulse of alien energy. It surged outward, striking the advancing Zevrak with explosive force. The creatures screamed, their forms twisting as the energy interacted with their biology in unpredictable ways. Kale's body shuddered violently, and he collapsed against a wall, sweat pouring from his face, his breath ragged. Yet he could see the results. The Zevrak faltered, unsure how to counter the sudden, overwhelming force. For a moment, hope flared. Humanity could endure. Humans could turn even the most insurmountable odds into a chance for survival. But the spear's energy pulsed hotter now, almost sentient, as if questioning Kale's resolve. His vision blurred, pain shooting through his chest, and he gasped for air. Lyra dropped beside him, pressing her hand to his shoulder. "You're stronger than it thought," she whispered, "and stronger than you realize." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You're human, you endure, that's what matters. That's why it's reacting to you, because you're not just a host. You're your defiance itself." Kale's lips curled into a weak, pained smile. Defiance. That was exactly what humanity needed and what he intended to give them, even if it meant sacrificing himself. He pushed himself upright, drawing on every ounce of willpower left. "Then we show it what humanity is capable of," he said, voice raspy but filled with determination. The Zevrak roared as more of their forces descended upon the outpost, larger and faster than before. Their war beasts moved like living tanks, limbs tipped with crystalline blades, eyes glowing with lethal intelligence. Kale felt the spear's energy pulse violently in response, almost as if it relished the challenge. Pain lanced through him, but he gritted his teeth and focused, channeling the energy outward. Each pulse disrupted the Zevrak's advance, forcing them back temporarily, giving Lyra time to fire with deadly accuracy. Yet even as they fought, Kale could feel the cost mounting. His body was weakening, his muscles trembling with the strain, his mind clouded by the alien presence within him. The spear's energy was alive, intelligent, and it wanted control, but Kale's human will was fiercer. Humanity had endured the cold of space, the weight of impossible odds, the betrayal of nature itself. And now it endured the wrath of a weapon designed to consume them. Hours stretched into a blur of battle and pain. Lyra and Kale moved through the outpost, using its crumbling walls and twisted machinery as cover, striking at the Zevrak whenever they advanced. Each pulse of alien energy cost Kale more strength, but each victory gave humanity a chance. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and outgunned, but the human spirit burned brighter than any odds. Finally, they reached the central chamber, where the outpost's main system still hummed faintly. Lyra worked quickly, interfacing with the alien energy scanners, trying to understand the weapon that had chosen Kale. Sparks flew as the system struggled to process the unfamiliar power, but slowly, a pattern emerged. The spear's energy was semi-sentient, reacting to its host's strength, fear, and determination. Kale realized then that his suffering wasn't just a burden. It was the key to understanding, to mastering the weapon, and perhaps even turning it against the Zevrak. "You can do it," Lyra said firmly, placing her hands on the console. "Focus on your will, on your humanity. The spear responds to that more than anything else." Kale closed his eyes, drawing a deep, shuddering breath. Memories of humanity's survival flashed through his mind. Colonies thriving on barren worlds, scientists fighting to preserve life against impossible odds, soldiers defending weak settlements against overwhelming forces. And always, humans had endured. The spear pulsed in his chest, and he met its energy with his own defiance, refusing to yield, refusing to die quietly. The energy inside him surged violently, brighter than ever before. Kale felt the pain tear through him, but also a strange clarity. He could sense the Zevrak outside, their movements cautious now, uncertain how to counter the unpredictable force. The spear had chosen him, but Kale had chosen humanity, and that choice was stronger than any weapon. Lyra's voice cut through the haze. "Kale, the main system is online. You can channel the energy now, direct it, control it. You can end this." Kale nodded, though his body trembled violently. He raised his hands, letting the energy flow outward, shaping it with thought and will. The Zevrak outside hesitated, then surged forward, unaware of the force they were about to face. Kale focused, channeling the spear's power with precision. Energy lanced out in waves, striking the advancing Zevrak with devastating effect. Their forms twisted, some collapsing instantly, others thrown backward like rag dolls. Lyra watched, awe and fear in her eyes. The humans outside the outpost would never have imagined this. A single human, infused with alien energy, turning the tide of battle. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed as fragile, but Kale's defiance proved otherwise. Hours of relentless effort left Kale drained, sweat pouring from his face, but he continued. Each pulse of energy drew him closer to collapse, but the results were undeniable. The Zevrak retreated, their advance halted, their confidence shaken. For the first time, they had faced a human who could wield a weapon beyond their understanding and survive. Finally, Kale collapsed against the console, the energy ebbing from his body as the spear's influence receded slightly. His breathing was ragged, each gasp a struggle, but he had survived. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she touched his face. You did it," she whispered. "You're alive." Kale managed a weak smile, his body trembling violently. "We survived," he said, voice barely audible. Together, the spear pulsed faintly in his chest, a reminder that the battle was far from over, but humanity had proven its resilience once again. They had faced an impossible weapon, endured its torment, and emerged victorious, at least for now. Outside, the Zevrak regrouped, cautious now, aware that humanity could no longer be dismissed. They had underestimated humans before, but now they had learned a terrifying truth. Humanity would fight, endure, and adapt, no matter the cost. And as long as Kale drew breath, as long as humans refused to yield, they would not be defeated. Lyra held him close, her eyes shining with pride and relief. The battlefield beyond the outpost was still dangerous, the Zevrak still a threat, but for the first time, hope burned brightly. Humanity had survived the impossible, and they would continue to endure, because even in the darkest reaches of the galaxy, their defiance burned brighter than any star. Kale closed his eyes, letting the pain wash over him, but feeling stronger than ever in spirit. He had taken the spear's burden, endured its agony, and learned to wield its power. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity was relentless. And as long as they endured, no weapon, no alien, no force in the galaxy could claim victory over them. The horizon burned with the alien light of the Zevrak's return. waves of predators and war beasts moving relentlessly across the jagged terrain. Kale Draven's body ached with every step, his muscles trembling, lungs burning with the effort to draw breath. The alien spear pulsed in his chest like a living heart, feeding off him, testing him, threatening to claim his life entirely. Yet he refused to falter. He had endured too much, and humanity depended on him now more than ever. Lyra Kess moved beside him, her armor torn and scarred, plasma rifle held steady, eyes scanning for the slightest movement of the advancing enemy. She had seen Kale fight before, but never like this. The spear's energy had made him something more than human, something terrifyingly powerful, but at a cost she could see in every line of his face, every shuddering breath. "Kale, you can't keep this up," she said urgently. "The spear, it's burning through you. You need to." "I know," he interrupted, voice raspy, each word a battle against pain. "But we have no time for weakness. They're coming, Lyra, and if we fall here, humanity falls." His eyes burned with determination, even as sweat and blood mixed on his face. The spear pulsed violently, responding to his defiance, amplifying his strength even as it threatened to destroy him. The Zevrak surged forward, massive war beasts leading their troops, limbs tipped with crystalline blades that glittered like deadly stars. Their eyes glowed with predatory intelligence, sensing the alien energy within Kale and recognizing the threat he posed. The first wave crashed against the human barricades, and Kale met them head-on, releasing a wave of energy that threw the advancing aliens backward like ragdolls. Lyra fired her plasma rifle with precision, covering Kale's blind spots, striking the Zevrak with deadly efficiency. Together, they moved as one, human skill and alien energy in perfect harmony. Yet Kale could feel the cost in his body mounting with every pulse. Each surge of power burned through him, and the spear seemed almost aware of his weakening state, probing, testing, threatening to claim dominance. He stumbled, nearly falling to his knees. Lyra caught him immediately. "You can't do this alone," she said, her voice shaking. "We need a plan. There has to be a way to stop them together." Kale shook his head. "There is only one way," he said. Pain twisted his features, but his eyes burned with resolve. "If I survive, it could destroy me slowly, but if I channel it, all of it, I can stop them. I can protect humanity. I have to." Lyra's hands trembled, but she nodded, understanding the gravity of his choice. Humanity had always survived because of individuals who refused to yield, who carried the burdens of many to ensure the survival of all. Kale was embodying that principle now, sacrificing his body to give the galaxy a chance. The spear pulsed violently in response, as if sensing Kale's resolve, its energy flaring into a violent storm. The Zevrak hesitated, wary of the sudden surge, but they would not retreat for long. Kale closed his eyes, drawing on every ounce of willpower, focusing on the humanity that had always defined him. Courage, sacrifice, and unyielding defiance in the face of impossible odds. Energy exploded outward in a massive wave, tearing through the battlefield, shattering rocks, and throwing Zevrak soldiers off balance. Lyra dove to shield him from the blast, but Kale barely felt her presence. His consciousness was consumed by the surge, a living storm of alien power amplified by his human will. The Zevrak roared in panic, their formations breaking as the energy ripped through their ranks. Yet even as the battle raged, Kale could feel the spear pulling harder, its alien intelligence aware that its host was weakening. Pain tore through him like fire, but he forced himself forward, every step an act of defiance. Humanity had survived worse, diseases that could wipe out colonies, wars that shattered planets, and yet here they stood, fighting, enduring, refusing to yield. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Kale, you can do this. Focus on the energy. The spear is listening." He nodded, though it took every ounce of strength he had left to raise his hands. The energy flared violently again, shaping itself into a focused beam that surged toward the largest Zevrak war beast. It screamed as the force struck it, tearing through its crystalline limbs, shattering the creature from inside out. The rest of the Zevrak scattered in panic, their attack faltering under the unexpected ferocity of a single human empowered by the alien weapon. Kale fell to his knees, gasping for breath, sweat and blood soaking his armor. Lyra knelt beside him, holding him tightly. "You've done it," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "You've stopped them, you saved us all." He shook his head weakly. "No, it's not over. The spear, it's still inside me. I can feel it burning me. Slowly, it will take me if I don't." His words trailed off as another pulse of energy flared inside him, pain ripping through his body in waves. Lyra's hands tightened around his. Then we finish it together. We control it, Kale. You're stronger than it. You're human and humans endure. Her voice was firm, unwavering, the embodiment of human defiance. Kale's vision blurred, the battlefield spinning around him, but he focused. Humanity had survived the impossible before, and they would survive this too. The spear pulsed violently, sensing his intent, but he met it with every ounce of willpower, every memory of survival, every act of courage. Then came the decision. Kale realized that he could not allow the spear to remain inside him. It would eventually destroy him, no matter how strong his will. But he could channel all its energy outward in a final act, a sacrifice that would protect Lyra, humanity, and every human left on Velaira IX. He looked at her, eyes filled with pain but also resolve. Lyra, I can't survive this, but you, humanity, they can. You must live. Lyra's hands gripped his face, shaking. No, I can't do this without you, Kale, please. Kale smiled faintly despite the agony. You can because you're human. That's what matters. Remember, humans endure. He raised his hands one final time, drawing the full force of the spear's energy into a focused surge. The weapon pulsed violently, screaming in alien awareness, and then exploded outward in a wave of light and force that engulfed the battlefield. Zevrak's soldiers and war beasts were thrown backward, their formations shattered, their bodies disintegrating under the overwhelming power. Rocks shattered, fire surged, and the sky lit with the brilliance of a human sacrifice amplified by alien energy. Lyra covered her eyes against the blinding light, sobbing, but she could feel the change immediately. The spear's energy was leaving Kale, dissipating outward, protecting the humans around them, obliterating the remaining Zevrak forces. The battlefield fell silent as the energy faded, leaving only smoke, rubble, and the faint hum of residual power in the air. Kale collapsed completely, the energy gone, his body broken, his chest rising and falling with great effort. Lyra cradled him in her arms, tears streaming freely. You did it, you saved us, she whispered, voice breaking. You survived, you endured. But Kale shook his head weakly, blood and sweat mixing on his face. I can't, not this time. The spear, it's too much, too powerful. His voice trailed off, but his eyes shone with pride, defiance, and love for humanity. Lyra's tears fell onto his face as she pressed her hands against his chest. Kale, you don't die alone. Humanity remembers. Humanity survives because of you. Outside the outpost, the remaining Zevrak forces retreated into the shadows, wary and fearful. They had underestimated humans once, but Kale's defiance had shown them the unyielding spirit of a species that refused to bow, even in the face of impossible odds. Humanity had endured once again. Kale's breath slowed, his eyes fluttering closed. He felt Lyra's warmth, her touch, and the faint hum of residual energy that still lingered in the air. And in his final moments, he understood the truth he had lived by. Humans endured, humans sacrificed, and humans prevailed, not because of power or weapons, but because of courage, defiance, and love for one another. Lyra held him close as his breathing ceased, tears streaming down her face. She whispered over and over, You saved us, Kale, you saved us all. Humanity endures because of you. And outside, under the crimson sky of Velaira IX, the remnants of the human forces emerged from their shelters, bruised and battered but alive. They looked toward the outpost, toward Lyra cradling the man who had saved them all. And in that moment, every human who had survived felt the weight of Kale's sacrifice, the enduring truth of humanity's spirit, and the promise that no force, no alien, no weapon could extinguish it. The spear's energy was gone, dissipated into the battlefield, leaving only the memory of its power, and the undeniable fact that humans, though fragile in appearance, carried a strength no alien could ever understand. Lyra rose, holding Kale in her arms, her face streaked with blood and tears but shining with resolve. Humanity had survived the impossible again. They had been underestimated, dismissed, and threatened with extinction, but they endured. They endured because Kale had shown them, in the most extreme way possible, what it meant to be human, to sacrifice, to protect, and to fight until the very end. And though Kale Draven would never see another sunrise, his legacy lived on, a beacon of hope and defiance. Humanity had endured, and they would continue to endure, because no matter the weapon, the alien threat, or the odds, humans never gave up. They fought, they sacrificed, They survived. The stars above Velira IX shone brighter that night, reflected in the eyes of every human who had survived. They were the witnesses to courage beyond reckoning, the legacy of one man who took a spear from another, endured the pain of a lifetime, and gave humanity a chance to live. And in that legacy, humanity endured, stronger than ever, unbroken and unbowed.